My stepmom sold my college fund for plastic surgery. Then karma knocked on her door. You'll thank me later, sweetie, Veronica said, admiring her reflection in the hallway mirror with the kind of vanity that made my stomach turn. Her freshly lifted face was still swollen from surgery, but she was already posing like she was auditioning for a magazine cover. I invested your college money in something that will benefit the whole family. I stared at her in disbelief, clutching the bank statement that showed my college fund. 18 years of my mother's careful savings, plus birthday money, summer job earnings, and every penny I'd saved since I was 12, completely emptied. $83,000 for $112. Gone. You invested it in your face, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. In our family's image, she corrected, running her manicured fingers along her new jawline. When your father and I attend social events, when we network with his business partners, appearance matters. This is an investment in your father's career, which benefits everyone in this household. My father stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand, saying absolutely nothing. The same man who had taught me that education was the most important thing in the world, who had promised me that my mother's college fund would always be sacred, who had held my hand at Mom's funeral and sworn that we'd get through everything together. He stood there in his pajamas and slippers, watching his new wife explain why stealing my future was actually a favor. Dad, I turned to him, desperately hoping he would fix this. Tell me you didn't know about this. He set down his coffee mug and rubbed his temples. Veronica, we talked about discussing this as a family first. Not, we can't steal from my daughter. Not, this is wrong. Just disappointment that she hadn't followed proper procedure before committing theft. The surgery was scheduled months ago, Veronica said, waving her hand dismissively. Besides, Sophia is smart. She'll figure out college. Scholarships, student loans, there are options. But this opportunity? I'm 38 years old. I couldn't wait any longer. I was 17 years old, 3 months from graduating high school with a 4.0 GPA and early acceptance to pre-med programs at 3 different universities. I had worked every summer since I was 14, saved every dollar, and planned every detail of my path to becoming a doctor. My mother had started that college fund the day I was born, adding to it religiously until the cancer took her when I was 10. And now it was gone, transformed into Veronica's new nose, lifted eyelids, and enhanced lips. I'm calling the bank, I said, heading for the phone. It's too late, Veronica called after me, her voice sing-song with satisfaction. The procedures are already paid for. Non-refundable. Besides, your father signed off on everything. It's all perfectly legal. The bank confirmed what I already knew. The account had been legally emptied by my father and stepmother, who were both authorized signers. The college fund my mother had established, that my father had promised to protect, was gone. Just like that. I sat in my bedroom that night, surrounded by college acceptance letters and financial aid forms, doing math that made my heart sink. Even with partial scholarships and the maximum federal loans, I was looking at graduating with over $200,000 in debt. If I could even afford to go at all. My father knocked on my door around midnight. Sophia, can we talk? About what, Dad? About how you let your wife steal my mother's money. About how you broke your promise to Mom. About how you're letting Veronica destroy my future for the sake of her vanity. He opened the door anyway and sat on the edge of my bed, looking older than his 52 years. I know you're angry. Angry. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dad, I'm devastated. This wasn't just money. This was Mom's legacy. This was her way of making sure I could become whatever I wanted to be. And you let Veronica turn it into her personal beauty budget. We can work something out, he said weakly. Maybe a payment plan, or... With what money, Dad? Veronica spent $83,000 on plastic surgery. Your salary barely covers the mortgage and her shopping habits. There's nothing left to work with. He left my room without another word, and I spent the rest of the night researching student loans, work-study programs, and in-state schools that might be more affordable than my dream university. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. If I wanted to become a doctor, I was going to have to do it the hard way. No family support, no college fund, no safety net. Just me, my determination, and whatever opportunities one could create for myself. I chose the state university, took out every loan I qualified for, and enrolled in their pre-med program. But unlike most of my classmates, I also worked 3 jobs, tutoring other students, serving tables at a restaurant near campus, and cleaning office buildings on weekends. I studied between customers, wrote lab reports during my dinner breaks, and reviewed anatomy textbooks while vacuuming corporate boardrooms at 2 a.m. Veronica's recovery from her mommy makeover took 6 weeks. She spent that time posting selfies on social media and hosting reveal parties for her friends, showing off her new look like she'd accomplished something meaningful. My father paid for professional photography sessions to document her transformation. Meanwhile, I was living off ramen noodles and spending my spring break working double shifts to pay for next semester's textbooks. The worst part wasn't the financial struggle. It was watching my father become a stranger. The man who had once helped me with homework and attended every school event was now entirely focused on keeping Veronica happy. When she complained that I made her feel guilty by working so much, he suggested I might be more comfortable living on campus year-round. When she decided the house needed redecorating, he took out a home equity loan. When she wanted a luxury vacation to show off her new look, he cashed in his retirement savings. When her friends started getting cosmetic procedures and she felt left out, he opened a credit card with a $50,000 limit. I watched all of this from a distance, visiting less and less frequently as the house transformed into something unrecognizable. Gone were my mother's photos, her books, her furniture. In their place were Veronica's crystal collections, designer throw pillows, and mirrors strategically positioned to showcase her surgical enhancements. By my junior year of college, I had made peace with my new reality. I was on track to graduate summa cum laude despite working 60 hours a week. I had been accepted to several medical schools, and while the debt would be crushing, I knew I could handle it. I had learned something valuable that no college fund could have taught me. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. Medical school was 4 more years of the same routine. Study, work, sleep, repeat. I specialized in plastic surgery, not because of Veronica, but because I was genuinely fascinated by the intersection of art and medicine. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was pursuing the same field that had stolen my college fund, but I found meaning in helping people who needed reconstructive surgery after accidents or illness. During my residency, I barely had time to think about my family. I worked 100-hour weeks, lived in a studio apartment that cost half my residence salary, and slowly paid down my massive student debt. My father called occasionally, usually when Veronica was having some crisis that required emotional support he couldn't provide. By the time I finished my training, I hadn't seen Veronica in person for over 3 years. I'd heard through family friends that she and my father were having financial problems. The house was heavily mortgaged, his retirement was gone, and Veronica's constant spending had pushed them to the edge of bankruptcy. I opened my practice in the same city where I'd grown up, specializing in both cosmetic and reconstructive surgery. Within 2 years, I had a waiting list of patients and a reputation for excellent results. I was 31 years old, debt-free, and finally building the life I'd dreamed of since high school. That's when Veronica walked into my office. I was reviewing patient files when my receptionist knocked on my door. "Dr. Martinez? There's a woman here who says she's your stepmother. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent about seeing you." Through my office window, I could see her in the waiting room. At 48, Veronica looked nothing like the woman who had stolen my college fund 10 years earlier. Her face was asymmetrical, with one eyebrow noticeably higher than the other. Her lips were overfilled and uneven. Most shocking of all, her nose, which had been the centerpiece of her original surgery, was clearly botched, with visible scarring and an unnatural shape that suggested multiple failed revision attempts. "Send her in," I said. Veronica entered my office with the same confident stride I remembered, but her face told a different story. She was trying to smile, but the expression looked painful and artificial. "Sophia," she exclaimed, as if we were old friends meeting for lunch. "Look at you. Dr. Martinez. I'm so proud of you." "Veronica," I said neutrally. "What can I do for you?" She sat down across from my desk and immediately launched into her story. After her initial surgery, she'd become addicted to cosmetic procedures. Over the past decade, she'd had multiple surgeries with different doctors, each one promising to fix the problems created by the previous surgeon. The results had been catastrophic. "I've been to 6 different doctors," she said, her voice taking on a pleading tone. "They all say I need extensive revision work, but the quotes are astronomical. 50,000, 75,000, more than we spent on the original procedures." I listened without comment as she detailed her medical history. It was a textbook case of surgical addiction combined with poor medical decisions. Each surgeon had tried to fix previous work without understanding the underlying structural problems, creating a cascade of complications that would require extensive reconstruction to correct. But then I thought, she continued, leaning forward with the same manipulative smile I remembered from my teenage years. My stepdaughter is now one of the best plastic surgeons in the city. This must be fate. What exactly are you asking for, Veronica? Well, she said, her voice becoming syrupy sweet. I was hoping we could work out some kind of family arrangement. You know how much your father and I are struggling financially. Maybe a family discount? Or a payment plan? I stared at her for a long moment, remembering the 17-year-old girl who had sat in that bank, watching her future disappear into this woman's vanity. I thought about the ramen noodles, the sleepless nights, the years of working 3 jobs while my classmates partied with money from their parents. Let me understand this correctly, I said slowly. You want me to fix the problems created by the surgery you paid for with my college fund, and you want me to do it at a discount. Her expression faltered slightly. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds exactly like what it is, I interrupted. You stole my future to pay for cosmetic surgery that you botched by being greedy and careless. Now you want me to fix your mistakes for free because we're family. Sophia, that was so long ago. We're all older and wiser now. Besides, I always said you'd thank me later. Look at you. You became a doctor anyway. My investment in our family's image must have motivated you. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window, looking out at the city where I'd built my practice through sheer determination and countless sacrifices. You're right about one thing, Veronica. I did become a doctor anyway. Despite you, not because of you. And I've learned something important about investments. I turned back to face her. You invested my mother's money in your appearance. I invested 10 years of my life in becoming the best surgeon I could be. Let's see which investment paid off better. I walked to my desk and pulled out a consultation form. I'll absolutely help you, I said, watching hope bloom across her distorted features. I can fix everything that's been done to your face. The asymmetry, the scar tissue, the botched nose job, all of it. Oh, Sophia, I knew you'd understand. How much of a family discount? Actually, I said, writing numbers on the consultation form, you'll pay double my normal rate. The hope in her eyes died instantly. Double? But we're family. Exactly. Family should have protected my college fund. Family should have supported my education. Family should have celebrated my achievements instead of taking credit for them. I handed her the form. My normal rate for the reconstruction you need would be $125,000. For you, it's $250,000. Payable in advance. Her face went white beneath the uneven makeup she used to hide her surgical scars. I can't afford that. You know we don't have that kind of money. Then I suggest you find another surgeon, I said, opening my office door. Though I should warn you, any competent plastic surgeon will charge similar rates for the extensive work you need. And frankly, after seeing what 6 different doctors have done to your face, I'm not sure you can afford to trust anyone else with discount surgery. She stood up, her composure finally cracking. You're being cruel. I raised you. I was there when your father needed support. You were there when my father needed support, I agreed. Just like his credit cards, his retirement savings, and my college fund were there when you needed support. The difference is, none of us got anything valuable in return. Veronica left my office in tears, and I never saw her again. My father called a few weeks later to yell at me for humiliating his wife, but the conversation was brief. When he accused me of being vindictive and unprofessional, I simply said, I learned from the best, and hung up. 6 months later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Veronica and my father had divorced. The house had been foreclosed on, and she'd moved back to her hometown to live with her sister. My father, now in his 60s and financially ruined, was living in a small apartment and working retail to pay for basic expenses. I felt no satisfaction in their misery. If anything, I felt sad for the father I'd once adored, who had allowed his second wife to destroy not only his relationship with his daughter, but his entire future. Today, my practice continues to thrive. I specialize in helping patients who need reconstructive surgery after accidents or illness, and I donate time each month to a clinic that serves low-income families. Every surgery I perform, every life I help improve, is built on the foundation of those years when I learned that I could accomplish anything if I was willing to work for it. I keep a photo on my desk, not of my father or Veronica, but of my mother. Underneath it is a small plaque that reads, "The best investment is always in yourself." Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled Veronica's request for help. The answer is simple. I offered her exactly what she had offered me, an expensive lesson about the consequences of our choices. She taught me that family isn't always the people who share your blood or your last name. Sometimes family is the people who support your dreams instead of stealing them, who celebrate your success instead of taking credit for it, who invest in your future instead of their own vanity. And sometimes, the most valuable education you can get is learning that you're strong enough to succeed, even when the people who should support you choose to tear you down instead. If you've ever had someone steal your opportunities and then expect you to be grateful for the motivation, this story is for you. Remember that success built through your own determination is worth more than anything handed to you by people who don't value your dreams. Share this story if you believe that karma has a way of bringing people exactly what they deserve. And subscribe for more stories about resilience, justice, and the power of investing in yourself, even when others won't. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.